The Spotlight brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
The beating death of Tyree Nichols, recorded on Memphis police body cams and lamppost surveillance cameras. The behavior so brutal and confrontation so needless, it's heart-wrenching to watch. But just as important that we not look away. There are crucial lessons here to learn so that another life isn't lost to such senseless violence. So good evening and thank you for joining us tonight for The Spotlight. I'm David Rose. What happened to Tyree Nichols started with a common kind of traffic stop, suspicion of reckless driving, which is yet to be substantiated. We begin tonight with a look at the growing movement to keep police from pulling people over so often. And now here in Washington State, the movement may become law. Legislators pushing for it argue that fewer reasons for traffic stops will result in fewer cases like Tyree Nichols. House Bill 1513 would prevent police from pulling you over for most kinds of non-moving violations like expired tabs, a cracked windshield, or a broken taillight. The only exception would be if it was an immediate safety hazard. The bill's sponsor, Representative Chapalo Street, told the House Community Safety Committee the legislation would refocus police on major safety threats while minimizing unnecessary escalations of force.
And like Chair Goodman pointed out, we've been reminded of this just this past week with the murder of Tyree Nichols. Unfortunately, we don't have to look very far outside of Washington for cases of this as well. So Brother Fatalogo was killed in Seattle over an incident that stemmed from him driving a car whose owner's license was suspended. Not his own, but the owner of the car's license was suspended. Brother Donald was killed in Clark County from an incident stemming from a broken taillight. And Brother McDade was killed in Kent from an incident stemming from expired tabs. Communities of color bear the disproportionate burden of these traffic stops.
The deadly beating of Tyree Nichols has been met with a wave of condemnation and deep sadness around our region and across the country. I watched it as soon as it was released, and I sat there horrified and asking, how could this have happened again? But as terrible as the video is, many law enforcement saw it as a learning moment and a reminder about how not to do their jobs. I spoke candidly with Pierce County Sheriff Sergeant Darren Moss.
I watched the video, and the first thing for me is just, I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm ashamed. I got really emotional.
Get on the ground! I think I tase you! Get on the ground!
It just makes it so hard. We work so hard to build trust with the public in Pierce County and in Washington State. Something that happens across the other side of the country can affect us so much. And you see something like this, and it totally, I can understand why people might not trust a police officer the next time they see him.
Keep your hands up where they are. Just stay still. Don't move.
You know, I saw some body cam footage of you and some other deputies arresting a man recently who was wanted for some pretty dangerous crimes and was armed with a large knife. I didn't see you beat the guy down. I didn't see you tase him. I didn't see you pepper spray him. And he wasn't, responding well initially to your commands. But yeah, you got him safely into custody. What's the difference between an arrest like that and what you're seeing in Memphis?
The best thing I can do for people is to show you and let you into our world and see how we actually deal with people, which is why it's so important for us to show you body camera footage of arrests that we're making.
There he is, right there. Show me now.
Tell you the details of the types of crimes that we're seeing and how our deputies are getting these guys into custody. In the video you're talking about where we arrested the guy with the large knife, he was somewhat compliant because he had his hands open and out in front of him, but he was not listening to anything we were telling him. You rammed the police officer's car. You almost ran over another police officer.
You guys have a group. Why don't you go step out of the vehicle? Get out
We have a dog barking at you that we can let go at any point because he's not following commands anymore. But it's on us to kind of gauge and see how people are reacting. And although he wasn't verbally being compliant, he wasn't posing a threat to us, which is why we were able to move up and just gauge him by grabbing his arm. And at that point, he didn't resist. We were able to take him into custody, no problem. There was 5 of us there.
Oh, listen to us, okay? Listen to us. You have a knife.
2 of us had arms. Somebody else got on his back. Somebody else grabbed his legs to make sure he couldn't struggle or fight with us, because the danger becomes when he removes that knife. Now we have to do what we have to do to protect ourselves. And we don't ever want it to get to that point. So we set up and we try to use as many deputies as we can, have as many options as we can to resolve it without having to use any extra force.
You know, we have a problem with stolen guns in our state being used in crimes. Oftentimes, traffic stops will help recover those stolen guns or even lead to an arrest of a wanted felon. Have you had any recent examples like that?
Yeah, just last night, January 31st, we had a deputy in our mountain detachment pull over a vehicle for an illegal turn. When he got up to the vehicle, he started talking to the driver and immediately noticed a gun was in between the driver and passenger seat.
What's that in the center? Don't reach for it. Looks like a gun handle. Is that a gun?
He ordered the driver out of the car, detained him, then detained the passenger, went back up to the vehicle, had dispatch run it, and it came back stolen. So this was a stolen vehicle now that he had. He had both the occupants detained. When he ran their information, the male was a convicted felon.
You told me that you're a convicted felon and there's a gun in the car. Okay.
The firearm that was found inside the vehicle, when he got permission to go grab the firearm, that was also stolen.
Are there any other firearms in the car?
No, sir.
So our deputy did a great job. It wasn't that somebody called in and said that there's a guy who's a felon in a stolen vehicle with a stolen gun in it. The deputy just did his due diligence. He saw a traffic violation. He made a stop, and he found all this other information. We are responsible for the people in our care. We're responsible for the people in our community. And if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, then why are we even here?
Returning now from traffic stops to police pursuits.
Nancy North 2, just to confirm, what state where are you guys at?
Starting 1, hold the air, they're backing up, they're trying to get away.
The scene, King County, just north of Burien. Air support is overhead. It's January 30th, as two deputies try to box in a stolen vehicle. That suspect plays bumper cars with the patrol cruisers and then speeds off, blowing through the stop signs and afternoon traffic. The outcome, as predictable as it is frustrating for victims and law enforcement alike.
Guardian 1 still southbound. I got officers terminating. He's passing 128 through a green light. Passing in the center turn lane. We can stay with him for a minute if Sergeant wants, or we can just stop following altogether if nobody cares.
Stop following if nobody cares, but people definitely do care. Police pursuits continue to be one of the most talked about topics in the state capitol this legislative session, and also one of the most controversial. 45 people signed up to testify at the latest hearing on House Bill 1363, which would loosen the current rules restricting pursuits to crimes involving violence, sex, or drunk drivers, and only when police have proof a crime was committed. Those changes were made in hopes that fewer pursuits would mean fewer bystanders hurt or killed. But the multiple mayors and police chiefs taking their turn at the microphone say avoiding one danger has created another. Criminals who have no fear weaponize the safety reforms, endangering the citizens who lawmakers had hoped to protect.
Despite the high visibility of law enforcement, despite the crowds there, a young set of males drove through in a stolen car. Not once through the crowd, endangering lives, but twice. They came back. They drove around the block and came back a second time. Why? Because they can.
My city has data, reports, video, witness statements, and statements from criminals themselves that they knowingly commit crimes and steal vehicles because they currently have a guaranteed ability to leave the scene if they, and I quote, can just get into a car.
House Bill 1363 would not be a return to the old rules entirely. It calls for extra training to qualify officers to initiate pursuits, extra communication with local law enforcement during the chase to keep bystanders out of harm's way, and extra emphasis on ending the pursuit by stopping the suspect as soon as possible. Yet, even with the public acclaim, the extra safety guardrails, and bipartisan support, House Bill 1363 is largely considered dead on arrival. Why? Well, that's because the Senate version is being blocked by the chairperson of the Law and Justice Committee. Senator Manka Dhingra says University of Washington data shows the current standard for pursuits has meant fewer people killed in chases. But that study, based largely on news reports instead of official police reports, has come under harsh criticism by Seattle University researcher Dr. Matthew Hickman, who tells the Spotlight this is a sloppy way to set public policy.
It's reckless and it's irresponsible. I mean, these are our elected lawmakers, and making a decision on such a shaky foundation is reckless and irresponsible. I don't understand it. I don't know why they wouldn't perform some due diligence. For one thing, relying on the fatal encounters data is very questionable. The Washington Traffic Safety Commission has data on police pursuits. Why not go there? We have 275 law enforcement agencies in this state. They all document pursuits. Why not go there? These are the logical sources of data, and I just don't understand why the legislature would not have gone to at least the Traffic Safety Commission. The goal is objective research, right? You're setting up questions, you're developing a very rigorous and clean method for answering those questions, and you collect the data and let the cards fall where they may. Right? That's the goal, is objectivity.
When we come back, how law-abiding gun owners are putting more weapons on the street for the bad guys. Now to another hot topic, gun ownership, and how hard should it be to buy one. A trio of bills before the Washington State Legislature would make it much harder to purchase a firearm, including brand new rules for training and a mandatory waiting period before you could buy your gun. House Bills 1143, 1144, and Senate Bill 5232 would altogether require a permit to purchase firearms, a 10-day waiting period for gun buyers, proof that the buyer has completed a firearm safety course in the last 5 years, and a background check for all guns, not just pistols and semi-automatic rifles. So far, this legislative package is still in committee, but should it pass full House and Senate votes, it already has the backing of Governor Jay Inslee. 2022 set records for violence in Tacoma. Now, law enforcement is pointing to stolen guns as a prime mover in the bloodshed they've been seeing. Around 200 firearms were taken from vehicles just in the city of Tacoma last year. The Spotlight's Frankie Thompson has more on the new plea from police to gun owners.
Every 48 hours, a gun is stolen out of a car in Tacoma.
People store guns under their seat, in their glove box, in their center console. We remind people, don't store anything of value in your vehicle, especially guns.
Officer Wendy Haddo says guns stolen from cars is a concerning trend Tacoma Police Department is seeing more of. Like in December, Tacoma police arrested an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old suspected in a drive-by shooting and hit and run. Detectives recovered 4 stolen guns the suspects threw out of the window while trying to get away from police. The Tacoma Police Department says in 2021, there were 227 guns stolen from cars, 202 last year, and as of January 22, 2023, 10 guns have been stolen. Now officers are asking for gun owners to help them curb the trend by locking up their guns.
They can really help us out and stop these guns from filtering to criminals.
And away from young people. Just this month, police are investigating 2 homicides where teenagers have been killed, including the death of a 14-year-old boy, the suspect also underage.
We're having some violent crimes perpetrated by juveniles, oftentimes juvenile on juvenile violence, and they're saying, where are they getting these guns? Well, some of these guns they could be getting from those that are stolen in vehicle prowls.
To keep the guns out of dangerous hands, police are asking owners to leave them at home in a locked box or a safe, or keep the gun on their person if they have a legal permit.
We ask people to lock your guns up. Have a trigger lock if you have nothing else. That won't stop it from getting stolen, but it will stop it from being used easily by a child who might come upon it.
Still ahead, drug dealers are tempting more kids into fentanyl addiction, and the numbers are heartbreaking. Fentanyl is fueling crime all over Western Washington. Just in the last week, deputies in Pierce County tell me they busted 2 people in stolen cars who had fentanyl on them and hidden inside them. But it's not just the chaos on the streets that could put you or your family in danger. The Bothell Police Department is warning rainbow fentanyl has found its way to their city. Patrol officers say they found dozens of pills during a recent arrest. The pills were found in the pockets of 2 suspects who were arrested in a theft case. Law enforcement has been issuing warnings about these pills for months. The DEA says cartels are using these candy-like colors to sell more of the deadly drug to children and teens. To put it into perspective, the DEA says the amount of fentanyl powder that can kill you can fit on the tip of a pencil. A new House bill under consideration in Olympia would significantly increase the tax on marijuana products depending on the concentrations of THC. The bill's creators say they're attempting to address the public health challenges of high-potency marijuana. The Spotlight's Jennifer Dowling has the story.
We really have kicked up the topicals, helping individuals with some type of pain in their knee and their back.
Christian Briggs, the general manager at Euphorium Linwood, says 2023 is off to a good start with a new freezer recently coming in to hold sorbet products for the warmer months.
It's a new line that we are going to be bringing in for the summer, and hopefully the launch of that will push us through fall and into winter again.
Euphorium carries a wide range of products that contain different levels of THC.
With these, you can only get 10 pieces with 10 milligrams of THC in them. So that's already governed.
Under new House Bill 1641, taxes on retail purchases could go up based on higher concentrations of THC.
Kind of started thinking about who is initiating these bills and what's the purpose. I could say that excessive driving leaves issues with the roadways. So should we tax somebody if they're driving more than what we say is appropriate? I can go next door and get a beverage with 64 grams of sugar in it, okay? Nobody has a problem with that, right? But that 64 grams, if I'm a diabetic, that's gonna really affect how I am, right? So there's all of these issues.
Under the new House bill, the cannabis excise tax would be restructured into 3 tax rates based on THC concentration. In the first tier, 37% would be taxed of the selling price on each retail sale of cannabis-infused products, usable cannabis with a THC concentration less than 35%, and cannabis concentrates with a THC concentration less than 35%. A 50% tax would be levied on the selling price of each retail sale of cannabis concentrates and usable cannabis with a THC concentration of 35% or greater but less than 60%. Finally, a 65% tax would be put on the selling price of each retail sale of cannabis concentrate and usable cannabis with a THC concentration greater than 60%.
We're seeing that there's a correlation there between the younger brain and the high potency cannabis.
Representative Kelly Chambers says one of the motivations behind introducing the tiered tax bill is to protect young people. The idea is that younger people with less disposable income will be deterred from purchasing the high-potency cannabis at higher prices, thereby protecting still developing brains.
We've also seen that in the last 10 years since recreational cannabis has been legalized in Washington, that the market has kind of driven the demand for higher potency products. So that's why they're very popular and they're out there. At the same time, we still want to maintain that public safety.
These are products that, should not be in the hands of youth, of minors, and that, when used improperly, especially, they can certainly cause harm. But, it definitely gives us a lot of heartburn and worries us that such a high tax, at 60+% on certain products would just feed into the existing black market.
Aiden Espino says there's also concern that more taxes and other restrictions under the bill could cause more headaches for local shop owners in an already tight market.
People are gonna get what they want. Is this an avenue for them to have to go look somewhere else?
Up next, when doing the right thing can have the wrong outcome. We're taking a look at the pros and cons of opioid clinics. Earlier this week, a methadone clinic opened in Linwood despite the pushback by residents and the city council. The Department of Health approved their license. Tonight, the Spotlight's Alejandra Guzman headed out to Everett to see what happened there when a similar clinic opened up.
You all right? Before it was just Wild Wild West.
Barber Sean Gandy says his business has seen firsthand what can happen when an opioid clinic opens nearby. His business, it's about 800 feet away from one in Everett.
Just the drug trafficking and the vandalism on the building, the breaking into.
That's not all. He tells us he's seen an increase in theft and even shootings in the area since the clinic opened.
They're looking for a handout. They're not looking to frequent the business of what it is.
Off camera, Rite Aid employees say patients from the opioid clinic have shot their windows, they fight inside the store and steal, walking out with things stuffed in their socks, jackets, or backpacks. Andrew Feisley disagrees.
It's been a good thing since I've been on it.
helped me a lot.
He's been a patient at this treatment clinic in Everett for the last 5 years after he says he stopped taking opiates for pain. Andrew is one of many who comes in 6 days a week and says his story proves that clinics like these are absolutely necessary.
I've had a lot of friends that it's been beneficial. It's kept them out of prison. It's kept them, got them back into their normal life.
Andrew feels clinics like these can help people change, but those living nearby feel that it's also changing something else. Their community. With the recent opening of a new clinic in Linwood, they have a warning for residents about the potential risks it could bring.
Do you feel that there's cause for concern there?
Yep.
Why?
Because the traffic can drift over to the Boys and Girls Club easily, just like the traffic can drift from there to here.
Andrew, a father himself, says this is the lesser of two evils.
It's definitely a lot better than having no outlet.
Property management in Everett has hired security, which several businesses say has helped decrease the spike in crime. But they hope the placement in Linwood will lead to a change in where opioid treatment centers are allowed to open. Stories like that started with the audience sharing their concerns with us and asking questions about what's really going on in our community. And now the Spotlight wants to hear from you. You can go online to our Spotlight page on the Fox 13 website. That's fox13seattle.com. We've got a special form. You can submit tips on story ideas. And of course, all of your information will be kept anonymous. That's all the time we have tonight on the Spotlight. Until next week, be smart and stay safe.